What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Wars Report. Let's talk about the NBA trade deadline today. I have a special guest with me, Jacob from Amateur Hour Sports. Thank you, Jacob, for joining us today.
Of course, happy to be here, man. Happy to talk Raptors with anyone anytime. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. All right, so let's jump right into it. So Kyle Lowry, we've been hearing all sorts of rumors about him going to the Miami Heat 76ers. It looks like Miami Heat are the team that are most likely to acquire him since they seem a little bit more interested in the 70, more than the 76ers at least. What do you think we should get from the Miami Heat in return for Kyle Lowry?
Well, the reports are suggesting that the Raptors are looking to have a package centered around either Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson. And personally, I'm looking at it like it's either Tyler Hero or the trade doesn't happen because Duncan Robinson's 26. He's going to be an RFA very soon. Likely going to be a guy we're going to have to pay in the free agent market. It's not really, or I guess the restricted free agency market. Raptors aren't really in a prime position when it comes to cap space. So for me, it's got to be around Tyler Hero. So package around Tyler Hero, salary fillers, maybe a rookie like Precious Achiuwa as well coming in. That it would have to be that for Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, I agree. Again, the same thing with Duncan Robinson. He's going to be a free agent, and I heard reports online saying he's going to command somewhere around $20 million, which doesn't make sense because you could potentially pay Norman Powell that money instead of just acquiring Duncan Robinson. The only thing he's doing really is just shooting the 3-point. He's not a good defensive player, despite being 6'7". He's not a great rebounder. He doesn't really do much outside of shooting 3-pointers. So I don't know if that makes sense for the Raptors, unless, like you said, Tyler Hero is involved in that trade. So
$20 million. That's a number I have not seen. That's too much money for Duncan Robinson.
that is, I agree.
Somebody else can pay that. I ain't paying that much for Duncan Robinson.
I absolutely agree. Again, that's too much money. And if we are, again, for me personally, again, Tyler Hero does make sense. But if we're going to acquire, especially if we're trading to Miami Heat, they are an Eastern Conference rival. We may face them in the future. Even, again, I know we're not doing that well right now, but maybe in the playoffs this season as well. You don't know how the season's going to turn out. But you don't want to trade to them and have expiring contracts. It doesn't make sense because you could just keep Kyle Lowry and re-sign him. So if we are to move Kyle Lowry, I think it makes sense if you're getting some intriguing pieces back. And for me, Tyler Hero, same thing. Like you mentioned, Precious Achiuwa is a really nice piece I would want back. He's a little bit undersized for a center, though. He's only 6'8", I think, 230 pounds, almost similar size to Pascal Siakam, but he's an energy guy who can rebound, and that's something the Raptors desperately need. So
that's all I needed the center department right now. Energy, rebounding, and coming out of getting drafted in the, I believe it was the first round by the Miami Heat. Loads of potential. The Raptors love working with loads of potential guys that can develop. So that would make sense to me. I read some reports today that regardless of the trade happening, Kyle Lowry wants to be a Miami Heat player next season. Whether he'll be a Miami Heat player the end of this week remains to be seen. But next season, it seems like Kyle Lowry's plans are to sign with the Miami Heat. Apparently, he has a good relationship with Jimmy Butler. So I'm in the mindset that I'm trading Kyle Lowry now instead of losing it for nothing at the end of the season.
I agree. I mean, last couple of seasons, we've seen obviously Kawhi left and Danny Green, but we also see Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka leave. We were obviously planning on re-signing those guys, but you don't want to lose your key pieces season after season for nothing. And Kyle Lowry is getting up there in age. I think he wants to compete at this stage. As much as I hate to say this as Raptors fans, I don't really see us being contenders, at least for this year anyway. So I do see him being moved to a contender and get some young pieces back as well. I did want to touch on the 76ers as well. What are your thoughts on what we can get from the 76ers, and who do you think is more attractive, 76ers or the Miami Heat?
So I've done like quite a bit of research on the 76ers, how we can balance out cap situations. I haven't done a tremendous amount on the Heat because that's only been the last few days where that's really become the prominent destination for Lowry. So I think that realistically, the Raptors are looking at some young pieces they can help have this soft core rebuild with. So the pieces I'm most interested in are obviously Therese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, and Shake Milton. I think that we can get two of those guys. I would personally go with Tyrese Maxey and Matisse Thybulle. The prospect of having Matisse Thybulle on this team, I think he's got potential to be all defense one day. Having him play with the likes of Van Vliet with Anunoby, who are already showing signs of being all defensive players as well. Having those guys plus salary fillers, the best way to balance this out for me is Danny Green, Mike Scott, Therese Maxey, and Matisse Thybulle, all for Kyle Lowry. I think that both teams can go away pretty happy. The Sixers need to decide is this the year? They need to decide if this is the year they can make the push, because Kyle Lowry is the guy that puts that team over the top, in my opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think I've been reading comments online about a lot of fans complaining about paying that much for a 35-year-old, but we know this. When we acquired Marc Gasol, we gave up a lot. And you know what? He
Yeah,
did help us a lot. And at the end of the day, the goal in this league is to win a championship. And if you can get Kyle Lowry, he can help you in those aspects. And he does more than just what shows up on the stat sheet. He takes
of
charges. He has
course.
that leadership in that locker room. So he does help the 76ers, who are a fairly young team outside of maybe Danny Green and Dwight Howard. So he provides
Oh
that
yeah.
leadership, and he'll definitely help the young guys grow. So
Yeah, and for me, I always label Kyle Lowry as a serial winner, just a guy who knows how to win games. Not always shown on the stat sheet, but he knows how to win games. And when it comes to playoff time, you absolutely see that. You absolutely see that because he does the gritty things not everybody wants to do to help push his team over the top. And I think that he completes the 76ers team. I don't think they're strong enough with their current crop of players to take down the likes of the Brooklyn Nets. So I think the Sixers really think this is their year. They should go for this trade.
yeah, I agree, especially with the history of Joel Embiid. I know he's only 27 years old, but big men usually don't age really well. And the injuries just pile up as they get closer to 30s.
And already for him, he's getting injuries left, right.
He is. So another player I want to talk about, Tony Bradley, who's a center. I was doing a little bit more research on the 76ers, especially since Joel Embiid has been out. Tony Bradley's a 6'10", 248 pound. He's only 23 years old, and he's averaging 4.8 points and 4.9 rebounds in only 13 and a half minutes played. And since Joel Embiid has been out, I looked at his stats. He's averaging about 7 rebounds in about 4 or 5 games he started since Joel has been out. So I think him, along with Paul Reed actually went one pick before the Raptors' second round pick. He was, I believe, 58th. He's 6'9", 210 pounds, 21-year-old. Another very intriguing player. He's actually just named the G League MVP and all defensive team in the G League. So he's another intriguing piece. He averaged 22.3 points, 58% from the field, 44 from the three, and also 11.8 rebounds, 2.36 assists, 1.9 steal, and 1.8 blocks in the G League. He's doing all that in, I believe, about 31, 32 minutes. So I think the 76ers, besides those guys you mentioned, have some really nice pieces as well. If the Raptors decide to get a little bit more greedy and they want more besides Tyrese, Maxey, and Matisse Thybulle as well. So,
yeah, I mean, those guys sound intriguing as well. I'm personally in the mindset that there's a lot of teams who want Kyle Lowry. Make sure you get something good for him because he's clearly a valuable asset to teams who have championship aspirations. You saw it when the Raptors won the championship, and you saw it last year. Like, could you imagine that Boston Celtics series without Lowry? Lowry's playing out of his mind in that series without a lot of help, right?
Right, absolutely. So imagine what he's going to do with, the 76ers and Miami Heat, who's got Jimmy Butler. He's, like you mentioned earlier, he's got a good relationship with him. So I do want to talk about some other players as well. So Norman Powell, who's been rumored to be in the NBA trade deadline, a lot of rumors flying around about 5, 6, 7, several teams being interested in him. How do you feel about the Raptors trading him? Do you think we should trade him or keep him?
Well, when it comes to Powell, I think that he is one of, if not the most valuable asset when it comes to the trade deadline, because he's a guy who averages 50, 40, 90, like no problem right now. He can, he's proven as a six man, he's proven as a starter, and he's only getting paid about 10 to $11 million. So it is the most essential piece right now for a contender to solidify their scoring, because he's just like, just scores at will at this moment. He's the most valuable he's ever been. And you don't need to do a lot to balance out salaries. So this is like a match made in heaven for a lot of contenders. But when it comes to the Raptors trading him, I would rather keep him and give him a contract at the end of the season. I think he's more valuable to keep and sign at the end of the season than let go right at this current stage. But I don't know how you feel about this one.
So same thing. Again, I feel exactly the same way you do. We have to get a good return in Norman Powell if we are to trade him. But it becomes really complicated because as much as we hate to admit this, we have to move one of Kyle Lowry or Norman Powell. If we pay both of them in the offseason, we're already stuck with paying Pascal, OG, Fred VanVleet, 16, 20, and obviously Pascal's making 30 somewhat million. We can't afford to pay more guys. We're going to be left without a center again. So we do need to move some of these guys. But again, if Norman Powell can bring a good package back, if we can get a center for him, if we can get a couple draft picks for him, I think he's a very movable asset because of his age, because of his contract, and he can contribute to any different team. He can play the shooting guard position. He can guard multiple positions. He can play the small forward as well at times. So
Yeah, I agree. It's very good asset players. I don't want to trade Powell. I'm in the mindset that I want to trade Kyle Lowry, and then you have the money to sign Powell in the offseason. I think that Powell's scoring is just going to continue to evolve because in the last couple of seasons, he averaged 50, 40, 84, or essentially that. He was 49, 39, 84 last year for shooting. And his stats have stayed the same, if not gone better, except he's just playing more minutes and he's taking more shots. That's why. So I find it astonishing that even with this increased volume of shots he's taking, he is maintaining these field goal percentages. So any team in the league would really like to have this player right now. I ran a poll with my channel, and it seems like the popular opinion is trading Kyle Lowry. Nobody really wants to trade Powell, or the two most popular opinions are trade Lowry or trade neither. But I think, like you were saying, with contracts, you'll lose one in the offseason for free if you don't trade one now. So I say trade Kyle Lowry.
I agree. And you know what, Norman Powell, this whole season we've been talking about, we need a shooting guard who can score, who can drive to the basket because it opens up the lane. And you got guys like Fred VanVleet and OG standing on the 3-point line. So he attracts those defenders and you can just kick it out to those guys. So he does a lot of the things. When he was struggling, we, as Raptors fans, we were actually looking for a shooting guard who can do some of those things. And he's kind of doing that now. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Who knew, right? So things change really quickly. I do think he's definitely a player you want to hang on to unless you get a deal that's hard to say no to. So moving on, I do want to talk about some other guys as well. So the reports came out yesterday saying the Raptors are interested in Rashawn Holmes and Spencer Dinwiddie. I want to talk about Rashawn Holmes first. What are your thoughts on him?
I love Rashawn Holmes, man. I really hope we can get this one done. I really like Rashawn Holmes.
Yeah, same here. I mean, we know how bad Aaron Baines has been playing, and we desperately need a center, and there doesn't really seem to be many out there. So
Rashawn Holmes, one of the best assets when it comes to the center department right now. I think the Kings have enough big men to not really miss him. Plus, the Kings are struggling this season. I don't think they would mind giving away an asset like Rashawn Holmes for maybe salary filler plus a second-round pick. He's on an expiring contract. I don't think the Kings expect him to re-sign there. He's only making about $5 million. Not a difficult contract to take in. He's averaging like over 13 points per game, over 8 rebounds per game, I think it is, on almost 65% shooting. Plus, he can hit his free throws at a decent degree. This is an excellent player for the Raptors. Just a guy who can score at the rim and rebound, just be a consistent finisher at the rim. It's what we are seriously lacking with this team. And I think something we were seriously lacking yesterday because the starters got hung out to dry, like VanVleet, Lowry, Siakam, and Powell all had pretty good games, but not a lot of points came from other players. So Rashawn Holmes would fix that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, again, he's 27 years old, so it's not like he's still fairly young, but in NBA terms, I wouldn't really say he's really young. He's entering his 29th year soon. So it's, or he's going to be 28 years old soon. So
yeah,
it is one of those players that I feel like you can get for cheap just because it's the Sacramento Kings. I mean, let's be honest, they're not the smartest of organizations. I feel like you can, Masai Ujiri can rip off any organization. You know, we saw what he's done in the past, and yeah, I agree. I think we can get him for a second-round pick, maybe throw in Aaron Baines if you have to, and maybe like a Matt Thomas or someone else, like one of those bench guys that doesn't really get many minutes. So.
Yeah. I think Terrence Davis would be an attractive piece for some teams like the Sacramento Kings, just a younger player who they can build a little bit with, try to rebuild with. They've been trying to rebuild for like a decade and a half. Like, no disrespect to the Sacramento Kings organization, but they haven't been great with business. And maybe they just feel like they can get a young asset here for a player who's likely not going to re-sign with them anyway. So this is one I feel like the Kings would an asset the Kings would let go, especially with Hassan Whiteside, who can just step in and fill that void that he would leave.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think he'd be a really good addition to the Raptors. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, if he doesn't fit the system like we had hoped with Aaron Baines, obviously I don't think he could be worse than Aaron Baines. But if it doesn't work out, you could always just let him walk at the end of the season. So he's a free agent, so it doesn't hurt you too much. I also want to talk about Spencer Dimwitty. What are your thoughts on that? I've been hearing some talks about Raptors being interested in Spencer.
When it comes to Dinwiddie, I'm not completely sold on this one. He's making about the same amount as Norman Powell. And like, is there really anything Spencer Dinwiddie does that is better than what Norman Powell does? And in my opinion, the answer is no. They're on like pretty much same contract here. They're going to be expiring at the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken. And Powell's just better than him in every regard of the game. So personally here, I don't think this is the right move for the Raptors. They already have a lot of guards. They already have a lot of undersized players. What we really need to solidify is either prospects or getting a center. That's the priority right now.
Yeah, I agree. And he's also out the entire season with an injury. So there's a lot of rumors about him wanting a lot of money in the offseason, despite coming off a big ACL injury, I believe he's out with. So it doesn't make sense. You're acquiring a free agent who you're going to have to pay at the end of the season. I was hearing about the Nets being interested in wanting a second-round draft pick for him. I don't know. At this point, I don't really see why we would give them a second-round draft pick for Spencer Dimwitty. He's not going to play the entire season, and it doesn't make sense for the Raptors to acquire him.
No, this was a really puzzling rumor. Like, I just generally had no idea why we would even be interested in the first place, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It was really strange. Again, you don't know with some of these rumors. It could be made up. It could be false. You don't know for sure. But
of course,
yeah, we do. Let's hope the Raptors aren't trading for Spencer, because
no,
it doesn't make sense.
I really don't see Masai Ujiri going for that one. Honestly, I really can't see Masai Ujiri trying to make this one happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to quickly touch on some other big men as well. What do you think of Andre Drummond? Possible buyout market. Do you think we should sign him if he's on the buyout market?
Buyout market is completely different to the trade market. So I've done a video talking about Andre Drummond, and I'm completely out on this one. This is a monster contract. When it comes to the buyout market, kind of makes sense for the Raptors if they really feel like they can make a decent run in the playoffs. But like, I'm gonna look at it from Andre Drummond's perspective. What do the Raptors have to offer here? The Brooklyn Nets are gonna be all over this guy in the buyout market. Toronto look like a team who are going to maybe scrape into the playoffs, go through a play-in round. Andre Drummond's chasing rings. So for Andre Drummond's sake, I don't think he'd want to come to the Raptors. For the Raptors' sake, if we really have to rely on Andre Drummond to be, that suitable big, then I think it's a great fit, especially in the buyout market, especially if it's cheap and you can afford it. But I can't see him wanting to join the Toronto Raptors. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. Of course, he's going to be trying to contend, and then he'll try to get that bag in the offseason. You're hearing all sorts of rumors about Lakers and Nets being interested in him. And same thing, even when you look at it from the Raptors' point of view, do you really want to trade? We're obviously not trading for him. He has an enormous contract. But when you do sign him in the buyout market as well, he's one of those guys, he gets a lot of rebounds, but he's not one of those players you can sign or you could play in the last, let's say, 3-4 minutes of the game, because teams are going to double team your main guys, and they're going to leave Andre Drummond open. He can't space the floor. He can't shoot threes. He's going to be clogging up that paint. And you know what? I don't know. You can't really play him in the last few minutes of the game. It doesn't make sense having a big man like that. So
it's pretty remarkable how 5 years ago Andre Drummond was regarded as a franchise player who you built your team around, and the NBA has changed so drastically that nobody wants to trade for him anymore. It's remarkable how the NBA has changed, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's definitely changed. And also just the game is a lot quicker than it used to be. And as we saw with the playoffs last season, unfortunately, guys like Marc Gasol, who's still a good defensive player, gets exposed because they bring him out to that 3-point line, pick and roll, and then guards just go flying past him. So unfortunately, it's not a really big man's game anymore. So that's why it makes it so much more difficult to trade for a big man as well, because you do want to get someone who moves quick laterally and, obviously shoot and rebound well. So it makes it a little bit more challenging. And that's where I think the Raptors kind of messed up letting Serge Ibaka go, but that was a tough loss.
I mean, they put all their marbles in the Giannis basket, all their eggs in the Giannis basket, and it just didn't work out. Masai Ujiri is a risk taker. He's willing to make that risk to try to make this team, take this team back to the championship. And he took a huge risk when he traded franchise player DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard. That paid off. He decided it was worth the risk, and a week later, Giannis signs his supermax with the Bucks, and we're stuck without Ibaka or Gasol. It's just kind of the way it panned out.
Just the Raptors' luck, right? We finally get a player who, you hear rumors about being interested in maybe coming to Toronto, maybe signing with the Raptors, and of course, a couple of weeks later, he signs that big contract.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the rumors, I really feel like these rumors were completely manufactured by the fans. We just felt like. And honestly, Toronto is a fantastic destination for Giannis. It would have been a fantastic destination. I feel like it would have been one that would have brought him a championship if he signed a 5-year deal at some point. But Was there ever really a huge interest from Giannis? That's something we don't really know. I don't really think so. I feel like since Giannis already signed that extension, Giannis honestly could have been playing the market. Giannis, like the Toronto Raptors, were a big threat to the Bucks in the playoffs. The Toronto Raptors got worse because he took so long to sign his extension. So maybe some of that was at play. Maybe he decided, okay, Toronto's going to lose 2 key assets. And then a week later, he signed with the Bucks, and the Heat as well had to let some guys go. And a week later, Giannis signed with the Bucks, and the Miami Heat regressed, and the Toronto Raptors regressed. So maybe something else was at play there.
Yeah, maybe he did that on purpose. For all we know, he kind of pressured the owners to make that move for Drew
That's
Holiday.
what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking, man.
Yeah, so that's it for today. Thank you so much, Jacob, again, for doing this video. Really appreciate it. It was good talking with you, and I'm sure we'll collab sometime in the future again. But thank you so much for doing this trade talk with me today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, man. Check out my channel, Amateur Sports. Same thing as this guy right here. Do a lot of Raptors content. Just 2 Raptors fans right here who just want to see the best for the franchise. And everybody thinks they have the right decisions, but obviously we also think the same way. So appreciate you having me on. I'm happy to do it, man. I definitely enjoyed our chat.
All right, thank you. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Until next time.
Take care.
You too.